The subject today is lacrosse. I hope this high-tech gathering finds everybody safe, healthy, and in good spirits. We are all in this together. We will all get through this together. I talked about lacrosse, in this case, both the women's and men's programs at UMass Lowell. Our panel includes women's head coach Lisa Miller, men's head coach Ed Stephenson. We are joined as well by players from the women's team, Hana Caster, who is a senior midfielder, and from the men's team, Dom Giachello, who is a junior attackman midfielder. We're going to get things going by asking the coaches to kind of give a little bit of an overview of the program, where they feel it stands, and we'll explore that further. But I do want to start with the head coaches. Lisa Miller is, if you will, the new kid on the block. Her first year at UMass Lowell. She has coached previously at Harvard, at Syracuse. She coached the Canadian national team as well. She played her college lacrosse at William and Mary, where she was a captain, where she was as well an All-American. She was a member as well, I should note this, of the U.S. national team. 7 games into her coaching career this season, unfortunately, a coaching career at UMass Lowell, the season came to an end, the team with a 2-7 record. With that said, Coach Miller, I will turn things over to you for a quick overview.
Okay. Thank you, Bob. And welcome to everyone on the call. I just wanted to start by saying I continue to be excited and grateful for the opportunity to coach the young women of the Riverhawk program. And I'm very optimistic about our future. I think my mission as a coach has always been to provide a competitive experience and a holistic experience for our young women, and while pushing them to be their very best on and off the field. So that being said, I think we can all agree that the challenges of the current situation come without a playbook. We're working our way through it. I think I am eternally grateful for having been with my team when the news came down of the shutdowns. We at the very least had the ability to, have a little bit of closure, spend some time together. We were lucky to be in and around the support network that the university provides, and help our student athletes transition not only to the loss of the season, but scrambling to move off campus and then making the move to online learning. And I think the support staff around us, the weight room, the training room, the academic support services, the administration, didn't make that easier, so to speak. I don't think it was ever going to be easier, but it certainly made it smoother, and it let us turn our eye to the future. So we were fortunate to be together versus not together. That being said, coming into the year, I had 2 main goals. One was to make progress culturally. What I was looking for was player-led, shared values, expectations, and behaviors. I think we spent a tremendous amount of time in the fall working on that, had complete buy-in from the upperclassmen, who did an amazing job laying the foundation and the building blocks for future success. So that was goal number 1, and we were well on our way to doing that. Goal number 2 was to become more organized competitively on the field and to acclimate our underclassmen. I think what a lot of people don't know is that 17 of our 25 student athletes are underclassmen. Next year, 24 of our 34 student athletes will be underclassmen. So we were working to transition them to a game that is a lot faster, a lot more physical. And we were also well on our way to doing that. And I think that, when I was walking onto the field for our last game, what turned out to be our last game against Marist, I was pleased with where we were. I walked off the field, was a little bit disappointed because I suspected that this was going to happen. And we had hit what I thought was a competitive turning point in terms of organization and trust and resilience. And we were the group really, really looking forward to conference play and the possibility of making the conference tournament. So I think we're in a good spot. And, we had a little bit of time to think about how to transition into next year. It came earlier than we wanted, but we had a little bit of time. And, we prefer to just move forward and go from here and see how we can get better.
All right, thank you very much, Coach. I want to Shift gears to Ed Stephenson. He is in his 6th season leading the UMass Lowell men's lacrosse program. Ed has coached as well at Binghamton and at UMBC and at Towson. It was at Towson that he played his collegiate lacrosse, a defenseman and an All-American defenseman. For Hawks through 7 games this season, 3 up and 4 down. And as indicated by Coach Miller, neither of the teams had the opportunity to get into conference play. But Ed, if you will, kind of an overview of how you look at this season and where we are as a program.
Yeah, Bob, thanks. I hope everyone's doing well out there. All of our guys are healthy right now. Their families are healthy. We do have one graduating senior that's has some family members that are fighting COVID-19. So our thoughts and prayers are with him and his family. And thanks, Bob, for giving me this opportunity. It's exciting to be this is my 2nd time starting a program, and really excited from that first year where we got our 1 win. And it's a challenge because when you start a new program, there's a couple variables that you deal with. Are you starting from scratch? Do you have any players? Do you have a team? We didn't. And do you have that postseason ban? We did. So you look at those different characteristics, and I'm so proud of our young men. By the time they were seniors, our first season where we were postseason eligible, we made the conference tournament, played the number 2 ranked team in the country in front of 3,500 fans, a packed stadium, great atmosphere, incredible atmosphere for the young men. And we led for 50 minutes out of 60. And really, really proud of those guys. Last year, was excited to return to the playoffs again. We had some key injuries in conference season and just came up a little bit short. Had to win 1 more game and weren't able to do that. So injuries were a factor. And as you're developing a program, a young program, one of the things that you have to do is stay healthy until you get that depth. And I think that we're getting the depth coming in and really excited about that for the future.
I will note for people, there is a chat function. That is how you submit questions. You can click on the chat feature and then type in a question. We will get to your questions. Before we do that, though, I do want to get to the 2 student athletes that we've got as part of this panel. We will start with Hana Caster. She is a senior, a midfielder. You see her wearing number 24 on the field. 40 goals, 52 points in her career. She is an exercise physiology major. And Hana, just your kind of general thoughts on your time here at Lowell and maybe a little bit about the abrupt end to this season.
It was kind of weird, just like Coach said, because we were kind of right in the middle of kind of our turning point, like just kind of hitting our peak before conference. So it was definitely abrupt is a great word for it, but like Coach said, it was really good that we were all together, but obviously wicked sad because this was supposed to be the year that, we were going to make those playoffs. And I think that we were all pretty confident that we were going to do that. So I don't really know. There's no way to sugarcoat it. It really kind of stunk that we didn't get to do that this year, but I'm confident that next year we'll, with especially that good class of freshmen coming in, I think that we're going to do that next year.
All right. We'll shift gears and turn things over to Dom Giachello. And number 2, for those who have come to UMass Lowell Lacrosse, he is an attacker, midfielder, 25 goals, 37 points in 2+ seasons. I guess maybe that's the best way to describe it. He's a business administration finance major. And Dom, your thoughts on the season and I guess its abrupt end as well.
Yeah, so we were having a good year. The team was very cohesive all year, and we were very confident about where we were headed. And then those 2 weeks where some schools started canceling their programs and we didn't really know what was going on. So it was just a lot of confusion. And then that day when they canceled the program, we had met, and it was honestly just one of the saddest things ever, because the whole team was together. We were eating supas, and they said that originally that it was canceled for 2 weeks, and we were like, okay, so, or it was canceled. It was postponed, excuse me, and we didn't really know where it was headed. Everyone was just so confused. And then we get home and we get the text that the season was over, and immediately, like, everyone's heart sank. We didn't know what was going on with the seniors. Like, the team would never be the same again. We knew that, and it was tragic. There's, yeah, like Hannah said, there's no way to sugarcoat it. It's devastating.
I've got to guess that for both you and Hannah, having your teammates around you is an asset in a situation as heart-wrenching as this one.
Yeah, absolutely. That was a major thing. We kind of had each other to, like, rely on, and we still had a couple days to spend together to just kind of, I guess, wrap it up. But that definitely helped, at least.
I want to return to the coaches a little bit and talk about the progress, where we are for the programs. And I suspect for Lisa Miller, in your first year, you talked about some things you hope to accomplish. You talked about competitiveness. You talked about kind of team developing their own values. I'm curious, and this will end up going to both coaches, but how long does it take for a team to develop a team identity? And is this something that the players develop on their own, or is this something that the coach kind of directs them toward a specific identity?
It's steered, it's directed, it's it's not something that you talk about once and then you move on and hope that it develops organically. I think it's something that you have to we have to work on. I mean, we spent time in a classroom. We spent time talking every day. We break up into small groups and we talk about what's important to us and what behaviors either support or detract from what's important to us. And I think what we were trying to do is, move toward a shared identity and build some trust and some respect and, resilience. But more than anything, just trust in each other off the field that would translate on the field. So no, I don't think team identities they can happen, they will happen. But I think what you want is a consistent identity and a consistent value system and behaviors that that if in place and you're moving along and you're competitive, you're building a culture, and that culture, while it will change through the years slightly, it will be recognized when alums return to the field 20 years later for an alumni game. So I think that's the goal, that you build a culture that is recognizable throughout the years. Of course, it's going to morph given the situation. It alters slightly depending on your leaders. But you want it to be familiar and consistent to be competitive, sustainably competitive, I guess is the way I would put it.
Ed Stephenson, team identity, how does that develop? And in that you've been there for a number of years, does it carry over from one year to the next? Or does the team have to find its identity each year, even though so many players were there from the year before?
Yeah, I think, Bob, when you're developing a team, well, first and foremost, we want to be the top academic team in the conference. We've done that. We are the reigning champs right now. We'll continue to do that. It's in our fabric. It's a non-negotiable. No matter what we do and how we progress, I want our young men to go out and get jobs and be very competitive in a very challenging workforce. So really, really proud of our guys over the years. We've had 2 Chancellor's Awards in the past 3 years. That's for the top student in a particular school and major at the entire university of all the graduating seniors. We've had 2, and that's really special. So definitely. And Bob, people ask, what style do you want to play, Coach? When you get there, and we are closing in on getting there. There's a couple pieces that we need. I feel like they're coming in with a large group next year that will kind of fill in some of the gaps. But people say, how do you want to play? And basically we want to play as fast as we can, score as many goals as we can. And a lot of those things, there's many aspects. There's transition, there's man up, there's all even. And, transition's an area where we want to continue to improve in and see if we can't play a little faster and do some early offense, some things that we haven't done a lot of, a little bit, but not a lot of. We want to continue to progress in those areas where we can be more fruitful. So definitely want to play. I think it's fun for kids to play fast, Bob, and to enjoy the game. And as we fill in those gaps, those are some things that we will do.
Kind of curious, and I'll ask the athletes, Dom and Hana, this, following up on that question of team identity. How would you define what is your team identity? What words would you use to describe it? Hana, we'll give you the first opportunity to answer that. But how would you define your team identity?
Well, actually, when we first started this year, one of the first meetings we had was, surrounding this topic and what we wanted our team culture to be and our team identity. And we kind of tossed some words around, and we ended up making this whole sheet that now we all have it, and it's in the back of our lockers, and has some of our values: respect, communication. We have like a team motto, and like Coach was saying, we have like a pretty clear line of above and below the line kind of like behaviors for our team. And it's, academics are important, and going to class and respecting our teammates and everything like that is included. And Coach Stephenson said it good, like you want them to be non-negotiable. Like Coach was saying that you want kids to come in and you want them to follow these team identities just as much as they follow lacrosse values. So I think that's kind of where we're heading, and we this year made big strides in that front. So
Dom, we'll shift gears to you, and then I'll ask you that same question. How would you define the team identity?
So as we talk about how as UMass Lowell lacrosse player, no matter where you are, on campus, off campus, you're representing the entire team. So we like to carry ourselves with respect. We're very, we value academics, we value our teammates, we value working hard, and all the things that kind of make up most college athletes. But yeah, that's what I would say.
Can't hear you.
Can you repeat that, Bob?
Yeah. Forgive me. Yeah, I hit the wrong button. That happens, even to me. A question submitted by the public asks about the impact that the COVID-19 virus has had on your recruiting, in that games aren't being played, and you probably can't get out of the house all that often anyway. And we'll let both coaches address that, and whoever wants to go first, jump right in.
Bob, I guess I can start it's such a challenging time, and I'm very optimistic. I've heard some good things over in Great Britain. They've had some tests on a vaccine already, and they did it with monkeys. They've already got 600 people signed up for the human trials. So really excited about that. And those are the things that we're going to need to see to go back to normal. But we're prepared for the fall to continue with the social distancing, and we may have to train a different way. I don't anticipate that we'll be out on the recruiting trail until mid to late summer if we can get that in. That'll be a challenge. I think whenever that opens up, we'll be very aggressive, and I think that the NCAA will be flexible, understanding that we haven't had time to see those youngsters play. So in the meantime, we communicate through Zoom and in telephone calls with our current committed guys, and just reassure them that things look good on the horizon. So Lisa.
I think that our first priority were our current student athletes, our committed student athletes in the class of 2020 and 2021. I think communicating with them and making sure that they were, not completely settled, but comfortable, that, we will make our way out of this. I think that there are definitely bright signs ahead, or, signs of coming out of this. And, we wanted to make sure that they were comfortable. And then I know that there's a lot of uncertainty surrounding the summer recruiting. I think, the high school seniors and juniors, missed their seasons, or, they missed their seasons. And, it looks like some of the recruiting tournaments will be delayed. I do think that we're all fairly creative and we adapt to situations. It's what athletes do. And we will find a way to recruit. I know, my staff right now is looking at film from President's Cup, and as tournaments, if they are safe and it's, it works for parents and student athletes, we will be attending and watching. So I just think that people need to trust that, one, we need to make sure that everyone's healthy, and two, we will find a way to recruit. So, it will be different, but it will happen.
Another question we get that deals with the current health situation, but it is directed toward the student athletes. And the person says, how has your online learning changed your study habits? How has this situation affected your training habits? And we've been asking Hana to go first all the time. So Dom, this time we've got her think about it, and I'll ask you, how has the situation affected your online learning, your study habits, and your training habits?
So there was obviously a big transition when going from going to the classroom to going online. So it was just, for me, it was about getting in the habit of like preparing to go to class. So it's tough to get up in the morning and, in your house and think, okay, I'm going to class right now in my bed. But once you kind of get the mindset of, I'm in class right now, I need to focus on this, and you really get over the hump of being at home, then it becomes just kind of second nature. At this point, I'm really in the flow with it. All my teammates, I've talked to them, we kind of have a good grasp of it. And then, excuse me, what was the second question? My training habits?
Yeah, obviously, I mean, you'd normally be in season, you're not playing, but are you doing things to keep in shape? Are you doing some sort of training?
Yeah, I like to go outside and go for a jog every day, just to kind of clear my head, get out of the house, because there's really not many places I can go. And then we also, we set up a little gym in our garage that you have to be a little creative with the workouts you do, but it definitely gets the job done.
All right, Hana, how about you? How has this affected your online studies, your study habits, and your training habits?
As for training, like Dom said, you got to be creative, and it's actually been a lot of fun, especially I'm an exercise physiology major, so that's kind of what I've been learning the past 4 years. So I'm like, yes, I can finally start using all this stuff. So been doing a lot of home workouts, and bought my dad a lacrosse stick, and it was more a gift for myself so he could play with me. So doing a lot of that. As for academics, definitely is tough to wake up for an 8 a.m. when your 8 a.m. could literally be from your bed. So that's definitely been an adjustment. But like Dom said, you kind of have to just, make it a normal day. Wake up, get dressed, have breakfast, make it as normal as it would be at school. And that has kind of helped me stay on that consistent class schedule.
Another question, and I'll throw this out to anybody who wants to answer it. Being I share some of the sympathies, but one of those in attendance says, how do you prepare your team to play in those early season games when the New England weather is a little on the chilly side? I will say, standing on the sidelines, taking pictures, it's beyond a little on the chilly side. I've stood in snowbanks, etc. I'm curious, for the players, how tough is it to play in those conditions? For the coaches, how do you prepare your players to play in those situations? And whoever wants to go first, jump right in.
I mean, I think the fall season is incredibly important. I think you're doing a lot of teaching in the fall. And, hopefully you're starting to get structures and systems in, because in February, you don't want your players to be stationary. So, and then the weather has never really bothered me, so it's not something I think about. I'm conscious of not having our players stand. And if we are working on sevens or something that requires a handful of them to not be moving, then I'm aware of making sure that they have the ability to do something so that they can stay warm. But, our kids are pretty hardy and they're pretty gritty. So, and actually the weather in February this year was nicer than it is now. So I think if you're a Northern player, it's just one of those things that you start to figure out, you learn, and you manage it. And it does advantage you at different times to have been outside in the weather versus, inside or in a warm environment. So I think you have to look at it as an advantage versus a disadvantage.
Ed,
Bob,
you
I'll
want to
just-
jump in? Yeah.
I was just going to add quick, Bob. It's pretty relative. I've been in colder climates, so let me just put it that way. And I'll also say our if it does snow, we do get a little bit of thermal heating from the ocean. I love it. Again, it's warmer than some places I've been, and when it does snow, our facilities people are just tremendous. They're able to get the fields cleared and to get us out there practicing. So, Bob, I didn't have to wear gloves all year. So I'm curious to see how the students do, but I wore a sweatshirt and no gloves all year. So maybe I'm just getting a little tougher in my old age.
You're doing better than I am. I get a little cold on the sidelines. Dom, Hannah, you guys are running around, I suspect, building up some body heat. But what's it like playing in some of those February games right along the Merrimack River with that wind blowing? Dom?
So we practice at it every day. So it's really, once game time comes, it's really not that much of a factor. And also when you're in a game, your adrenaline is pumping, you have the warm-up music going, everyone's firing each other up. So really the weather is honestly not even a factor. You're not thinking about it. You don't really feel it because you're just focused on the game.
Hannah, the same thoughts for you?
Yeah, I'm always getting yelled at because I'm taking my sweatpants off when we're supposed to keep sweatpants on. So it doesn't really bother me too much. But I think the best part of it is you could probably just watch one practice and you can see the kids who are from Massachusetts and you can see the kids who are from Maryland. And it's really funny. So, yeah.
Fair enough. Ed Stephenson, got a question for you. Someone asking, we talk about starting a program, but we know that, well, let's say restarted the program at UMass Lowell. I'm curious because I remember when it started, I remember John Giachello and various others who were very supportive, thrilled to see lacrosse come back. I'm curious when you talk about this lacrosse program, yes, it was new again 6 years ago. Have the alums, John Giachello and Ed Gillis, Mike Zuccaro, people like that, have they been an advantage in getting the program going?
Oh, my goodness, Bob. I can't tell you how appreciative I am and our guys are for John and Mike Zuccaro, Stu McCord, Ed Gillis, Jeff Aronis, Steve Murphy, Ray Southworth. Those guys, as much as they can get away from their jobs, they come to all of our academic awards and leadership events. They're very active. They've been super supportive financially. And I got to sit down with John Giannakis, before the season, and it was fun. He was asking about, the transition and going from the band and where we see things going. So they've been just tremendous. And all of those guys were great students. They're very successful in their work, and they've been such an asset for our young guys as mentors. I've been so impressed with listening to them at these events and hearing them interact with the players and their stories. In the mentorship, just been invaluable to our guys. So very, very much appreciated, Bob. Thank you.
To Lisa Miller, then I want to kind of follow up in that there wasn't a program here with a long alumni base. when you took the reins. There had been a number of years, yes, the program was here, a very young alumni group, one that you had not been involved with. What does it take to bring that alumni group on board, and have you been able to do so?
I think it's a blend of communication and outreach. I just last week we had happy hour at 5, a Zoom call. You know, we were fortunate. I think there were 17 of our alumni on the call. It started at 5. I removed myself at 6:30, and I think some people stayed on until 10:30. So, you know, I think that what Ed said is important. You know, I think that the more we build the culture of the program and the more competitive we are, I think people are drawn to, you know, success, and, you know, they buy into it. And if you can build a network of alumni who can support and mentor our young women, I think that's our goal. We're hoping to bring everybody back in the fall. Alumni, our seniors who missed their senior day, I think that was something that was hard, and we're hoping to have that in the fall in conjunction with the men. Ed, I haven't mentioned this to you, but I'm throwing it out there right now. You know, and hopefully we can just, you know, build a family atmosphere in terms of connecting the alumni to the programs, and, you know, provide opportunities for our young men and women to network and, you know, be mentored as they move into their junior and senior years and trying to figure out what they want to do next. So I think, you know, constant communication. You know, I really enjoyed our happy hour Zoom call, and we're hoping to keep that up in the future.
All right. Hana Caster, curious, you've played for 2 different head coaches. Was there, in your view, was there a dramatic difference between coaches? And for a player, how long does it take to adjust to a new coach?
Yeah, definitely a huge difference. But I feel like that's kind of something that, you know, every lacrosse player has done their whole life, from going to youth to then to high school club coaches. So I've had a lot of coaches, and I think it's a positive thing, because each coach kind of brings their own genre and kind of like their point of view of the game. So, you know, the more the merrier. I think you learn a lot of different ways to do things, and 2 coaches in college was definitely a change, especially going into my senior year. I was, you know, had 3 years the same coach, and, you know, was a little hesitant on how things were gonna, you know, shift. But I think our fall was extremely productive, and you know, coach is very flexible. She knew that she had to like talk to us, and like we had to kind of mend together. So she didn't come in and just, all right, we're gonna change everything. We kind of like talked it through, and we found a way to, you know, make that transition pretty seamlessly. And it didn't really feel like a big abrupt change. It kind of just feel like a continued, you know, uphill learning curve.
A person in the audience writes and asks, what's the relationship between the men's team and the women's team? It's the same sport, but it's a different sport. And Hana, I want to stick with you before I go to Dom on this one, but what's the relationship between the 2 teams?
We're very close. I'd say that it's a big brother-sister relationship. I think every single boy on the team has, you know, a best friend girl on the team, kind of. It's definitely a big lacrosse family. I don't think we so much relate because of the sport, because it is very different. But, you know, in the recruiting process, I know that when I was a senior in high school, we not only met our committed class, but we kind of got the numbers of the men's committed class. So you kind of like come in together in that, you know, new scene. So we're super close. I'd say beyond any other team, you're closest with your same sport team.
Dom, what do you think? What's the relationship from your viewpoint to men's and women's lacrosse teams?
Yeah, like Hannah said, we're definitely closest with the women's team, closer than any other team. And in my recruiting process, we actually had a group chat with all of the commits from the guys and girls team. So coming in, we were already very close. We all lived in the dorms together, and we took classes together. So we've always been very close. We spend our weekends together too. So, and we're very close.
I'm curious, I'm sure you're close with one of your teammates, extremely close because he's your brother, Dante. Is there a sibling rivalry between the two of you? Or are you, being a junior and he a sophomore, you're kind of the mentor and he follows in your footsteps?
I would say I'm a bit of a mentor. I think that we're happy to play together. We've always been very close. We shared a room growing up for most of our lives. So we've always been very, very close, but we also have like the same friend group at home. So it's more like we're friends than brothers really. So it's really not particularly weird that we play together. We just kind of get along just like teammates.
All right, I want to talk about a little bit about the future here. Although, well, I have another question here, and I will follow the chat board. Question comes in, says, how do you as a student athlete balance between, or how do you handle the balancing of academics and athletics in scheduling and in time management? And who wants to go? I see, okay, Dom, you're shaking your head, so we'll let you go first and let Hannah get a little chance to think it over. How do you balance athletics and academics?
This is a huge thing for me. And I actually think that playing lacrosse has been a huge benefit to my academic success because I'm the type of person that needs structure when I'm doing things. So it's really great to have lacrosse to balance my time out. So I have class before practice, and then I'm going to get this done right after practice. And it's just really easy to balance it. And then the academic center, which is a privilege to athletes, has been a huge, huge help. SEMA, our advisor, helps us with anything we need, and we go to study hall. So it's a learning environment there. And then also Coach Stephenson from the get-go has put a huge emphasis on academics. So I don't know if it's like this at other schools, but I just think that playing lacrosse has been a huge help to my academic success and really hasn't really caused any problems.
Hannah, how tough is it to balance academics, athletics? And I probably should have included when I asked Dom, as well as I suspect people want a social life. But how's the balancing act?
Kind of like Dom said it, the structure of it almost kind of forces you to do things when you have to do it. So it hasn't been really a struggle for me either. It's kind of like if you have 20 minutes to do an assignment and that's the only 20 minutes you have, you'll get it done. Whereas if you have 3 hours, you'll wait until the last 20 minutes to do that assignment. So it kind of has helped to have, scarce times to do homework because you have to get it done. So yeah, I haven't really struggled either. I use my planner a lot and I'm very diligent in writing every little time that I have to get things done. So that's helped me. But other than that, yeah, everything's balanced pretty easily.
Right, earlier when I talked with the coaches initially, I asked for kind of an overview of where we were and so on and so forth. I want to look a little bit at the future here. I want to talk about the coaches as well as players' vision of the future for this program or for the respective programs. Lisa Miller, when in your opening remarks, or maybe it was answered, talking about the first year, you talked about competitiveness, you talked about a holistic approach, you talked about building and buying in on shared values, and you talked about competitiveness. Okay, that was year one. Tell me what you see for the future and how we go from year one to that future. What's the next step?
I think that recruiting, obviously, is number one. We want to continue to bring in student athletes who, are fit the culture essentially, and are good teammates. Two, I think we continue to work on our culture. I think that's something that we will always commit to and spend time on. And then as we get more comfortable with, I think the hardest thing for the transition was probably, just a difference in language and approach to the game for the student athletes, especially the juniors and seniors who, they get used to one thing and then they have to transition to another. So I think that gets easier down the road. We did a ton of teaching this year, and learning the language and learning each other essentially. But I think that gets easier, and then we want to play at pace. So we're looking to start to play faster next fall. And we want to play, and this is what I thought I started to see was just we were becoming aware of playing at pace while executing. So playing at pace and executing is what we're looking to do down the road. So it's a combination of things. I mean, obviously we were hoping, we were really building. My goal was to build toward conference play with our out of conference play. And, you know, I didn't want to shortcut anything in that process. So we were looking forward to that, and we will do that again in the fall. We will build for conference play in the hopes to make the tournament, and then, you know, possibly the NCAAs. But we're building up the structures underneath that allow us to be competitive is what we're doing right now.
Ed Stephenson, kind of the same question. Been here 6 years, but the first 4 years you're kind of handcuffed in that because of the transition, you can't have a goal of going to the NCAA tournament. You can't get into America East Conference play. So I guess the timeline's affected by that. You had talked earlier about playing at a fast pace. What's your vision of the future? How do we get there? What's the next step we have to take?
Yep. Well, you know, Bob, I think we needed a spark, and really, really appreciative of that first recruiting class that I had, because they provided that. On a night in April in Lowell, our stands were filled. We were playing the number 2 ranked team in the country. Our stands were filled an hour and a half before the game started. I looked out and there were people on the hills in the parking garage. It was one of the neatest atmospheres I've seen in all of my years. And you know, Bob, it's neat. The class coming in next year, many of those young men were at the game or saw it on video stream. And I give credit to those guys, because they trudged through the trenches building the program without being able to go to the postseason until their last year. So they wanted to be a part of something special, and they were able to do that. Now, granted, Bob, those fans weren't there to see us that night. They were there to see the number 2 ranked team in the country. But a lot of them left there saying, hey, this is pretty neat. This team played that team for 3 quarters dead even. And they said, this could be something. So I really think that was the spark that we needed for the future. And I'm excited, Bob, that the group coming in is our deepest and most talented group coming in. And I think that's what you need, is to fill those gaps, to have the depth to withstand the injuries in such a physically demanding sport. Something that last year, you know, we just came up a bit short with those injuries. I think that this class coming in will enable us to have the depth and the talent to take that next step. So I give a lot of credit to those guys that gave us the spark to get there.
Curious for both of the athletes, in that this isn't a program with a 50-year history. This isn't a Maryland or a team out of the Carolinas, or for that matter, I suppose, Johns Hopkins with their tremendous lacrosse history. But do you feel a little bit like pioneers, that you may not have been part of the first team, but you're certainly building blocks toward a terrific future? And whoever wants to jump in first, let's see who's nodding their head. Nobody's nodding their head. Okay, Dom's smiling. You get to go first.
Yeah, I do. And that was actually definitely a big recruiting point for me. I was really excited to join such a young program. And my freshman year, I was part of the group that went to the American East playoffs. So that's a historical moment for us as a school. And it was awesome to be a part of. And that's obviously our goal going towards the future, because, you know, we got a taste of victory, and I don't ever really want to look back from there.
All right, fair enough. Hana, your thoughts? A little bit of a pioneer there?
Yeah, so it's kind of one of the main reasons why I chose to come here. My high school experience was kind of similar, whereas my freshman year, we beat one team. In my senior year, we, you know, not only were a tournament team, but we were competitive in that tournament. So leaving high school was, you know, it was a really rewarding feeling, knowing that you were a part of something, you know, being built. And so coming into UMass Lowell, part of the recruiting process was, they were like, listen, this isn't going to be easy the first few years. I mean, we've beat one team. It's going to be building process. So you got to be in for that. And I see that as a challenge, and it's been really fun. And I do think we're going in the right direction. And yeah, it's fun.
Got a question for both student athletes. This comes from Steve Rogers. He says to Hana and Dom, what would you like to be doing 5 to 10 years from now? And is your experience in the sport a big part of your plans?
I hope to be a physical therapist in 5 to 10 years. I start my PT program in 2 weeks, actually. So I hope I'll be doing that. As for if lacrosse has, impacted that, absolutely. I think it impacts every part of, where my life will go past this, whether it's actually doing something involved in the sport or just, things that resemble a team or teamwork and, reaching a common goal with a group of people. But yeah, hopefully a PT in 10 years.
Dom, what about you? 5 to 10 years from now, what do you hope to be doing?
I want to be a financial advisor. That's always been my goal. I have family members that do it. But I think this program has given me so much that I would always like to remain a part of it. And I would like to be a part of a strong alumni network. And growing up, my dad was always my coach. So it's kind of like a goal of mine to have kids and coach them. Hopefully they play lacrosse. Hopefully they like it.
Fair enough. One other thing that I guess is a question for student athletes is I've got to tell you, we probably going a little bit longer than we expected. But one other question for student athletes, for Hana and for Dom, what advice would you have for up and coming college lacrosse hopefuls? Or maybe I should just say, what would you tell the younger self as advice when you were a freshman? All right, Hana, you're up first. Yeah.
Definitely with what's going on, one of the main things I would love to tell my younger self to literally cherish every single second, good or bad, with the team. Other than that, I think what I always tell the incoming freshmen is the first few months of freshman year, it's going to be a trying experience. It's super humbling. Everyone comes from, being one of the top players on their high school team, and then you kind of realize that everyone on the college team is coming from the same background. So I think you just need to trust the process and, you kind of get broken down and built back up the correct way. And you just kind of have to trust that it'll all work out and you're not, gonna fail or anything. I remember my first months of freshman year, I was like, oh my gosh, I've been cradling wrong for this whole time. But the first few months you figure it out and it all works out. So just trust the process and you'll be okay.
All right, Dom, what advice would you give to an incoming lacrosse hopeful?
I would just say that you want to be a sponge. You want to absorb everything that you can when you get there, because like Hana said, I mean, it's a very short time. Time flies by. I'm already going to be a senior in the fall. And the coaches and the players, everyone has so much experience and so much to offer that you really want to take it all in as best you can, because you can learn so much from it.
All right. A question from Megan. She says, coaches, what are you doing to stay connected with your teams while everyone is apart? Although I suspect you, in some ways, I think that question has been answered, but since it's been asked, I will offer it. Coach Miller, I don't know if you wanted to go first on this one.
I mean, I think we've the first week or so, we sort of let them settle back into their new their new world, so to speak, with their families and adjust. And then we started up. We actually had Zoom calls every week with the defensive group, the attacking group, and for a brief time in between, everybody together. So we did some film, but more than that, it was just connecting and talking and staying together. I think this group, and Hana could weigh in a little bit here, is really well connected and very close and has connectors within the group. So as a coaching staff, we're trying to maintain the relationship through the distance, through Zoom, and then texting and phone calls and things like that. But I also think that we're very fortunate that every class has, what I would consider to be a connector, a social connector, who has the ability to reach out and keep everybody together. And they have been doing a lot of work that way as well. So, just communication, not daily, but at least once a week. And, we hope to continue that going forward.
All right, Ed Stephenson, how do we stay connected?
Zoom, Bob, Zoom.
Yeah, I guess we know that.
Yeah, it's a new world, and it's neat. Dom touched on it earlier, where he knew the incoming athletes from the women's team before he even got here.
Mm-hmm.
The student athletes are probably managing much better than we are. They are so adept at technology. They're so used to it, and our group is very tight. So they're just constantly on all of those memes, the Instagrams, all that stuff. So we've been doing Zoom and things like that with the guys once a week or more, and placing some phone calls. But we're fortunate that these guys are very adaptable, and they've stayed connected. They're always connected. So and always have been.
This question, I'll be honest, this one comes from me. And it was kind of inspired by the talk about team identity and talking about playing fast and so on. I began to wonder, what sort of ingredients would you want to put together to create the perfect UMass Lowell lacrosse player? Not necessarily just the best lacrosse player, but the perfect UMass Lowell lacrosse player. Coaches, Ed Stephenson, I'll ask you first, what ingredients would you need to create the perfect UMass Lowell lacrosse player?
Bob, I would just say, be tolerant of people that are different than you, because all of these young men on our team, they each bring different assets. And as coaches, we have to be flexible to recognize those and to help them, accentuate those. So, Bob, there's an old story about a football team, and the coach comes out and, there's a brick wall there, and he says, the linebacker has to get around there, the quarterback, the wide receiver, one guy jumps over the wall, one guy runs through the wall, one guy walks around the wall, and he says, okay, you're going to be my quarterback, you're going to be my wide receiver, you're going to be my linebacker. So it's fun, Bob. It's so fun to work with these young people, and they all bring different things. And so just for each of these people to be the best selves that they can be. And that's all I ask of these guys. They're all going to be different. It's up to us to adapt and utilize those.
Okay, it sounds like my question probably wasn't the best, but I'll try it anyway with Coach Miller. What ingredients do you want to create the perfect UMass Lowell women's lacrosse player?
I think, Bob, obviously, there's a base level of athleticism, skill, and sport IQ that you're looking for. But beyond that, I want a good teammate. And I think that Ed touched on it. I think you need to be tolerant and respectful of others. And ultimately, at the end of the day, if you have good teammates, I've found through the years that some of my teams that have been incredibly talented but haven't been as kind to each other or respectful to each other as they should have been, underachieve. And I've had teams that haven't been as talented who are good teammates and they overachieve. So, in the recruiting process, we're always looking for talent, but we're also looking for good people. To me, the good teammate always trumps the talent, always.
All right. I guess we're getting close to wrapping this up. I guess I'll ask, and this kind of combines some questions that were out there. Are there dates we need to know about this summer for either of these lacrosse programs? Any final plug you guys want to get in?
We're on hold, Bob. So we will certainly let people know, and you guys and Boz and everyone do a great job of getting that information out there when it's available. So as far as camps and prospect days and things like that, we're just going to follow, the guidelines and identify when we can reopen.
All right, fair enough. Lisa Miller, anything we need to know about in the summer months that lie ahead?
I think the summer is on hold. I mean, it's just something that we're playing by ear, like Ed said. I will throw out the date of October 17th. I think, hopefully we'll be able to come back to campus and get going. And that's our Born to Run Foundation lacrosse jamboree and alumni day. And we've got a lot going on that day. And so we're going to put that out there, and hopefully people will put that on their calendar, and we'll be able to get it done.
All right. Coach Miller, Coach Stephenson, players, Dom Giachello and Hana Caster, it has been for me, and as I say, I kind of photograph lacrosse and I enjoy watching it. I am no expert. It's been an education for me today, but it's also just been absolutely a delight getting the opportunity to talk with each of you, and we thank the audience for the role that they have played in this as well. Absolutely terrific from my point of view. And I'm seeing various other people shoot in chats that say thank you very much. So for everybody out there as well, I would say thank you for taking part. It makes the job a lot easier at this end. Thank you.